But at the end of the day, players got to go out and play, and that's kind of the end of that story for me.
Okay, you heard it here first. Matt Cassel, former NFL quarterback, says head coaches are overrated. You guys can put that.
Oh, great. Here we go. Yeah, put that nowhere.
Welcome into the Hurry Up. Week 6 is in the books. We are looking forward to Week 7. And to get you ready for Week 7, I'm bringing back two of the best. And because these guys were so good together, we're bringing them back together. To my left, we have former first-round pick and NFL wide receiver Donte Stalworth. On our right, we've got former Pro Bowl quarterback Matt Cassel. Welcome back, fellas. It's great to have you guys together again.
Great to be here with you, buddy. We love this show. Are you kidding me? Let's go.
All right, well, we're going to start with the best team in the NFL now, the 6-0 Arizona Cardinals. And guys, what I want to get to on the Cardinals this week, we've talked a bunch about them over the last few weeks. I want to talk about the circumstance under which they got to 6-0, which is pretty incredible. They had a COVID situation, obviously, there last week. Early in the week, Chandler Jones pops positive. They go into daily testing for the rest of the week, and it winds up happening on Friday night into Saturday morning. They lose their head coach, Kliff Kingsbury. They lose their quarterbacks coach, Cam Turner, and they lose one of their prime defensive linemen in Zach Allen. And Matt, I want to start with you here, kind of what it says about the team and that they were able to weather all of that, losing their head coach, losing their quarterbacks coach, losing two members of their defensive front, maybe their best player in Chandler Jones going in. And they're able to go into Cleveland and not just beat the Browns, win 37-14, outgain the Browns by almost 100 yards. By the end of the game, it was so lopsided. Colt McCoy was in the game for Kyler Murray. What do you think it says about the group in general that they're able to weather all of that and get themselves to 6-0?
Yeah, it was an incredible performance. And, sitting there looking at this game, like you said, with all the obstacles that they had to overcome in this game, particularly with the head coach and their play caller being out. You didn't even mention Rodney Hudson, their center, was out with a rib injury as well, and he's a staple now on that offensive line. But it starts with Kyler Murray, and he went out there and performed like he's done all season long at an MVP caliber level. I mean, the guy's incredible, and he puts this team in such an advantageous position every time he takes the field. And not only that, the weapons that they have, whether it's DeAndre Hopkins or AJ Green, and then you got Christian Kirk, who's showed up every single week big time for this team. And then you got Edmonds and Connor in the backfield that are able to establish the run game. I mean, they are a very difficult team to stop. And what they've continued to do is just get better. And we wanted to see this year, look, is this team finally going to take the next step? And throughout the course of the season, whether it's been beating Tennessee to start the season, the Rams, which they hadn't beaten 8 straight contests prior to this year, they beat the 49ers, and then they go into Cleveland with all this stuff and all the adversity that's going on. And you know what? The leadership took control. They went out there and they dominated from start to finish. It's such an impressive victory.
Yeah, and I know both you guys know Kliff, and obviously you guys all have the Patriot connection with him. What do you think it is, Donte, about the program that he's built there where it's able to withstand something like this? And what do you think it says for Kliff that he's been able over the last 3 years to build a program that's strong enough to withstand his own absence?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty incredible to see, because when you get used to coming in with that type of structure, that type of organizational structure throughout the week, where we come in on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursday, Friday, even Saturdays, everything is laid out structurally, it's scheduled. And to have those ripples kind of, affect the way that they go about their normal week of business, it was really a thing of beauty to watch. And it shows you what Kliff has done with that organization, what he's built over there. He's brought in coaches who obviously Vance has been a head coach before. He's brought in a lot of players, obviously. AJ Green, veteran guy. And, Cassel alluded to it a lot about Kyler Murray. He is the engine that drives the truck of this car of the Arizona Cardinals. But, you also got to point out that they're +8 in turnover differential. And I believe that's only number 2 behind, I forgot who's leading, but they're basically number 2, and they're +8 at this point in the season. So that defense is getting turnovers, and they're not necessarily turning the ball over that much on offense, even though Kyler Murray's had, a number of fumbles this year. But the defense gets the ball right back for them, and they go down and they score. And so that also shows that, that when you don't have your head coach in and your normal play callers in, when that gets disrupted and you still go out and function like that, that just shows that the players are in tune with another and that the system is there and it can obviously run efficiently on its own.
The Raiders won without Gruden on Sunday. The Cardinals won without Kliff on Sunday. I'm not saying like a head coach is overrated, but like, is there like a little like bit of a takeaway from that whole thing that like maybe we put too much stock in the coaches and maybe this really is more of a player's game? I mean, I know that's something we've had a lot of discussion over with the Brady Belichick thing, and we know how that's turned out so far, right? Like, so is there something that you can maybe take away, you guys as ex-players can take away from that and look at like, well, like the Cardinals had like a head coach by committee out there, right? And then the Raiders had a guy who's never been a head coach before, and both of them won resoundingly. So,
this is what I'll say. The coaches coach and the players play on Sunday. And when it comes to coaching, it's amazing because a head coach gets in front of his team, right? Unless he's a play caller, then he's a guy that really, he's the voice of the group and he speaks to the group. But really, it's within those position groups that you get most of your work done, right? Your film study, going over the plays for the week, all the preparation that takes place is usually in those individual rooms or collectively in a group with the offensive coordinator and all that stuff. So all that stuff takes place during the week, but it's a rarity that a head coach is so involved in every position group. It comes down to those individuals. So it means a lot and holds a lot of weight when you have a good coaching staff that can get your team prepared and you feel confident that they can get you prepared, that they're going to go out and perform well based on your coaching staff, the belief in the philosophy that you guys have kind of created there. And the head coach is just the figurehead a lot of times. And again, unless he's calling plays like Kliff Kingsbury was, he had to prepare those guys to get ready to call a good game. But at the end of the day, players got to go out and play. And that's kind of the end of that story for me.
Okay, you heard it here first. Matt Cassel, former NFL quarterback, says head coaches are overrated. You guys can put that.
Oh, great. Here we go. Yeah, put that nowhere.
That'll be all right. Our third and final topic this week. The Dallas Cowboys wind up beating the New England Patriots 35-29 in overtime and probably the best game of the weekend. And guys, what I love about this game was so rich and kind of ancillary storylines and all the different things that happened. But the thing that really stuck out to me was how sloppy the Cowboys were and how some of the decision-making came back to bite them and how they were able to kind of work their way through that and win the game. And I think it started with the fourth down try in their own territory early in the game on the road. They wind up not converting. Ball goes over to the Patriots. The Patriots take the early lead. They were in the red zone on 3 different occasions in the second quarter. The total of that was 3 points. They got 3 points off of 3 red zone possessions. And then on top of that, they had 115 penalty yards. So, Matt, I'll start with you on this one. You look at all of that. You look at the sloppiness. You look at some of the miscues that they had over the course of, what wound up being a game with an epic ending. What's your takeaway from that? Is that something that's just, who the Cowboys are right now? Is that correctable? Do you look at it as they're wildly talented and they're not there yet? Do you look at it as this is going to come back to bite them and they're not going to be able to get past it? How do you look at the Cowboys coming out of, I guess, just like a really, really weird game where you can see how good they can be, but then you also see sort of, I guess, some of the loose ends that need to be tied up in the organization?
Right. Eventually, the penalties, like what they have, 11 penalties for over 100 yards and penalties, which is huge, right? And you can't have that. You can't have that as a good team. But at the end of the day, like you said, to start the game and just say 4th and 1, that's just being overconfident in who you are, and deservedly so. Look, that team was scoring 34 points a game, right? They're averaging 400 plus yards of total offense every single week. They're running the ball. They can throw at will. But at the end of the day, when you look at this team, like you said, you talk about the red zone, and it's a game of inches, right? The interception that gets Bethel makes a good play on it, but Dak Prescott, in one of the rare throws that he underthrows and isn't perfect with his accuracy, on the seam route, gets tipped up and gets intercepted. On another possession, Jonathan Jones makes an incredible play in the end zone on Wilson, which is a great throw on the sideline, but he just rips it out at the end. And then the the goal line stand by the New England Patriots, and Dak reaches over. Just all he's got to do is break the plane, and that hand comes up and knocks it out for another turnover. So, some unfortunate circumstances. You got to give credit for the New England defense and how they played in the red zone. But at the end of the day, we're talking about this. The outcome of this game was a lot closer than probably what it should have been, just based on what Dallas was able to do and establish and sustain drives throughout the course of this game.
Okay, so like Donte, I want to take what like Matt's saying there, right? Like with like some of these are like just strokes of bad luck. Some of these are the other team making plays, like, but there's still like the penalties, right? Like, and there's still like all right, like, well, it happened 3 times. You got to be able to take advantage of your opportunities. Like, are these things that can be worked on in season? Because I think a lot of times we look at a team, we say, okay, well, that's who they are. And maybe it's week 4 or week 5 or week 6. And like, I don't know. I mean, do you think a team can change in season, or do you think these sorts of discipline issues are maybe things that, go back to the spring, go back to the summer?
Well, you definitely develop habits from the spring and the summer, but they're also correctable as well during the season, especially penalties, especially pre-snap penalties. And, for the Cowboys, they're the second most penalized team in the league. But eventually those things are going to come back to bite you, right? Like if they were just they're just a much better team overall than the New England Patriots, but the Patriots made them fight and scratch and claw for everything. And there will be some games where they're not going to come out on the winning end of that if they continue to be penalized like they are, continue to turn the ball over like they did, against New England in New England. And if they continue to make these pre-snap penalties, those are things that against a good team will really beat you. And if they want to really come out and contend for the Super Bowl, they're going to have to eliminate those things pretty soon, because when you start to get to weeks 8, 9, 10, 11, that's when the playoff picture is going to start sorting itself after Thanksgiving. That's when you're going to start to get a really good picture of who's who and what type of seed they're going to be once they get to the playoffs, and what type of team they've been throughout the course of the year. So they can definitely work on it. They're going to have to eliminate those things. I have to believe that Mike McCarthy has made that a point of emphasis, and will make that a point of emphasis this week going into the next game. I believe they're actually on a bye week, so they'll probably get a lot of that this week, especially now that they're on a bye week, and they'll get some time to correct that. They have to correct those things if they want to contend for the Super Bowl down and when we get to January and February.
Well, Matt, like, this is going to sound like a really stupid question, and I know you're used to hearing them from me, but like,
No.
how do you actually like work on that, other than like the coach saying, don't do that? You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
how do you
right.
actually
Well,
work on becoming like a less penalized team,
Right, right. The pre-snap penalties is something that, like, you have to it comes down to concentration, right? And sometimes it's repetition, maybe sometimes it's new players being in there, but at the end of the day, that's all concentration. It's about getting alignment and assignment is what we always talk about. So you have to be able to have confidence in your assignment, which makes you confidence. It gives you confidence when you go up to the line of scrimmage and you can concentrate on the play at hand. Now, other stuff, when it comes to on the field, like there was a tripping call, there was a holding call, there was different stuff throughout the game. That's just fundamentals and technique. And that's something that starts with the coaching staff, that they have to absolutely hammer these guys with fundamentals, technique, and talk about how these situations can hurt us. Because everybody knows if you play offense, right, and you have a holding penalty, it's a drive killer most of the time, right? Anything that takes you out of the red zone or something like that on a drive where you're starting to move the ball into red zone territory, you get a holding call or something like that, you get 10-yard penalty, it's hard to overcome. So that's got to be hammered home. You can't have those type of penalties and think that you're going to continue to sustain drives. Defensively, it's the same stuff. They had, I think, a hands of the face. They had a few different penalties there. Again, fundamentals and technique, and that's what the coaches have to harp on throughout the course, not just this week because it was glaring this week, but it's every single week. That's what good coaching does, is they hammer home the points that are going to be critical for the team's success in the long run.
I think that this is a team that can compete with the Packers, with the Buccaneers, with the Rams, with the best teams in the NFC. Shouldn't forget about the Cardinals, of course. They're undefeated. I think the NFC playoffs are going to be wild to begin with. But,
Yes,
you look at the way that Dak and that offense is playing. And I mean, I'm glad, Matt, that you brought up the throw to Wilson, because that looked like it was in a window like this. And that was on a 4th down with the game on the line. I mean, like, I mean, seeing him make plays like that in those sorts of situations over and over and over again, I have the utmost trust in Dak and the offense. I think Zeke Elliott brings them a different element so they can win different types of games. I think he's become almost underrated. So I love where the offense is because they can do so many different things and they're so versatile. I think it's going to come down to, like you guys said, the defense. Like, does Trayvon Diggs continue to get better? Does Micah Parsons continue to get better? Like, they've got some young players who on paper, and especially in the first year in a new system, should continue to ascend. If those guys continue to get better and they can be just a middle of the road defense, like say they're the 12th best defense, the 14th best defense in the league, based on how they're playing offense, I think that might be good enough. All right, so on my left, again, that is former first-round pick Donte Stalworth. On my right, that's Matt Cassel. Both guys, fantastic guys. We're always glad to have them here. And we're always going to bring you guys in together now because this seems to be working out pretty well for everybody.
There's a chemistry. Quarterback, receiver. Let's go.
You guys had some time to work on that, too. Always appreciate you guys coming out.